everybody. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Matt Connarton. And, of course, the Honorable Gary S. Oppen.
Matt, how are you?
Good. You're all spiffy looking.
I'm spiffed up.
You're back to the no more turtlenecks?
Well, no, the turtlenecks are getting kind of hot, and I still have to put crap all over my neck to protect it after all the radiation. But
yeah.
So I decided to go with a tie today because at least it'd be cooler.
Right.
I got my my less kind or gentler hand grenade today.
Oh, the pineapple one, is that what they call it?
Jerry Little's our guest tonight. He's running for District 8, correct?
8.
District
correct.
8 Senate seat. Remember a couple of weeks ago we had J.P. Marzullo.
Yes.
This is his opponent.
Oh, okay.
So we got to see if we can make one of them look really bad.
Right.
You know.
Of course.
So that's why you brought the less kind, less gentler hand grenade.
Correct.
Got it.
See, this is actually kind of funny, but it's after remember this is World War II. We remember that from what was the show we used to watch when we were kids? The
Rat Patrol.
Rat Patrol and all that. This is World War II hand grenade.
Mm-hmm.
And after World War II, the Geneva Convention deemed that this was inhumane.
There should be a nicer way to kill a bunch of guys.
Yes, exactly. So they went to a kinder, gentler hand grenade after that.
I see.
And they went to the lemon-shaped ones in Korea, and then by Vietnam they had the baseball.
Huh.
And the baseball ones are actually just as lethal, but they're kinder and gentler, according to somebody somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's it for today, right? I think we're
That's
wrap
it?
it up.
That's the show?
a wrap.
Yeah, it's a quick one.
All right, everybody vote for me. And
By the way, Wendy Stevens Facebooked me and said to say hello.
very nice. Hi, Wendy.
She didn't mention you.
I said something to aggravate Wendy, but
Everybody look up Garden Plum and
Yes.
get
Yep.
some stuff from Wendy.
Yep, absolutely.
What is it?
Absolutely.
Garden Plum.
Yep, gardenplum.com, I think
Yeah.
is the
what
site.
did she
yeah.
do? What did she sell?
Herbs.
Oh,
Things
okay,
like
that.
okay.
Teas.
I did something
Good
to
stuff.
offend her.
But we're not sure what, right?
No, but she's not the first. It's not like I haven't offended a lot of people.
That's true.
But the thing is, when I offend people, it's never deliberate. It's just it's a talent.
It's a fact of honesty.
No, not really. So anyway, I think I was showing somebody my watch today because they asked me what time, and I realized, nobody has a watch today. You do?
Yeah,
You're-
it is a slow
You're
lead,
old-fashioned,
I am
Yeah.
old-fashioned, yeah.
because everyone has cell phones now.
Everybody
But you
has
don't
cell
have a
phones.
cell phone.
I don't have a cell phone. I don't want to
Reminds me I
spend.
should turn this down so that I don't get a phone call in the middle of the show.
It'd probably be a lot more interesting than the show itself, Jerry. So you might want to keep that going.
It's up to you.
We have a constituent, and who asked me to ask you because I don't know the answer to this. She said she has certain type of accounts. I forget what they were, but basically they were accounts that she set up X number of years ago to save for her kid's college.
529 plans, probably.
Whatever. I don't know. We saved up. I'm Irish, and my wife's Polish, so we saved up for lawyer fees. So I don't know anything about saving up for college or anything like that. But anyway,
That's
you
good.
think I'm kidding, right? So
Not entirely.
so anyway, she was saying that she keeps getting notices that you have to activate this, or it goes into a dormant account and then it's turned over to the state or something like that.
Yes.
What is that something new? Because I've never heard of it.
No, that's been around for a long time. Those are the state escheat laws. And by the way, Gary knows me as former president of New Hampshire Bankers Association.
Oh, okay.
And so he always has banking-related questions for me. This one has very little to do with running for District 8, but I'm always happy to help out constituents. And what happens is if an account sits dormant for a certain period of time, state law requires not just banks but insurance companies, frankly, anybody that puts out a gift certificate or a gift card. You need to notify the state that you're holding a dormant account of some sort, and then you have to escheat those funds to the state.
What's that word?
Escheat, E-S-C-H-E-A-T.
You're going to cheat people out of what?
Escheat the funds to the state. So the state says if, for instance, in the case of a bank account, nobody has had any activity on that account, and it appears that it has been abandoned, then you, the bank or the insurance company or the tanning salon or whoever gave the gift card out, cannot enjoy the benefit of those funds.
Okay.
You have to give them to the state, and then the state treasurer will make a number of attempts to try to find that person. They'll call them up several times a year. There's a big listing in the back of the newspaper, little tiny type, and there's thousands of names and addresses listed with the big heading, if you find your name here, call the state treasurer. We've got something that belongs to you. So that's how the state
I thought
tries
that
to-
was just a thing so that I'd go try to reclaim all my drug paraphernalia and they'd arrest me.
Well, there are, occasionally those sort of traps are run.
Oh,
but,
okay.
no, I'm
So
just
it
kidding.
wasn't-
I don't know. Certainly not in the state. It's cheap. But
So that explains.
But-
Because I know there's those websites you can go to and type in your name and some.
yeah, but they're
information.
just trying to rip you off. Those
Really?
websites they're a scam.
Really?
So what they're going to do is they take actually the pages that come from the state that are printed in the newspaper and they read them, and then they'll send you an email. We've got something of yours, and so you reply to those folks, and they're going to keep 50% of whatever it is.
Oh, okay.
So pay us a fee, and we'll tell you where your lost
So they
funds
get-
are. So if this
Gotcha.
woman,
Well, so in my case, that would have been a good idea because they would have gone to get up the drug paraphernalia and then sent me half.
Right. Yeah,
but
that's
but
true.
in the
And they
case
would've
of
got
the woman who
arrested, right?
contacted you,
Yes.
she says a bank is calling her or sending her
Sending
notices.
her notices that
Well, she should get in
And-
touch with that bank, and she should say, "I'm still here. Don't consider my funds abandoned. I may
yeah, well,
not have
that's
done
just
anything."
it.
with
It
them,
was
but-
one of those accounts where she set it up X number of years ago for the kid's college, so therefore she didn't do anything with it for a lot of years because she didn't want to. It's like
Yeah.
one of those things you set up and you just leave it alone because you
Yeah.
don't want to even consider it because otherwise you'll pay a bill with it.
She
Or,
should just contact the bank and say, "I'm still here," and just go in and talk with them, and they'll do a data entry, and they'll say the customer came in on May 14th, and we had a conversation. Everything is all set. So that's all they need. Did I tell you that I'm running for state senate in District 8?
what's your name again?
Oh,
Jerry Little.
Just ask him his website.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, sorry.
you rat me out.
So
Yeah, okay. So anyway, Jerry,
yes,
what's your website?
JerryLittleNHSenate.com.
Oh, that's easy. Okay, and it's J for Jerry, not G. So Jerry Little what?
NHSenate.com.
NHSenate.com. Okay, so anyway, we've known each other for quite a few years. What motivated you to decide to run for state senate? Because that's a big. People might not know, but state senate is a huge commitment just to run for office,
It's a,
plus time. I mean, as a state representative, I can get away with doing 1 or 2 days a week, but state senate, you're up there a lot.
State Senate is a full-time job year-round, whether it's campaign season or not, and you get the same pay that you're collecting every year, $100.
I'm a lot
So-
smarter than him.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
You are,
Yeah.
you know?
Work smart, not hard.
And there you go. So what caused me to run for it is that I'm a ninth-generation New Hampshire native. I was born and raised here in this state. I love this state, and this state has been great for me. I had a wonderful career here. I raised my family here, and I feel an obligation to pay it forward, to try to help New Hampshire remain the great state that I was fortunate enough to grow up in. And I happen to be, an involvement, community-oriented kind of guy. When I moved to Ware 9 years ago, which is about when I
Really?
I knew you before then because I lived in Concord and I worked in the State House a lot, and so we would bump into each
that's
other
why.
before then. I didn't move to Ware until about 9 years ago.
Because you were, and where you were the
Well, I was town moderator for a while.
moderator. Yes.
So my point was going to be that within months of moving to Ware, I was on the finance committee. That's the way that I am. I come into town and I say,
Now, were you
Here I
were
am.
on that finance committee with my favorite wife?
I was with Brenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you moved there 9 years ago, and you
I
got
did.
involved. Okay.
I got on the finance committee, and then Laura Bono, who was the town moderator before me, moved out of town. We needed a new town moderator. I was asked if I would step in and complete her term, and then I did another term on my own.
Yeah.
All the while, I'm working at a fairly high stress, very busy job full time. And now I am chairman of the Ware Public Library Foundation, and I'm on the Capital Improvements Projects Committee. So I'm just the kind of guy that jumps into the community and gets involved. And I am now retired and feeling very fortunate for the gifts that the state of New Hampshire gave me, and I want to pay it forward. I want to be involved. I know how much work it is to be a state senator.
Right.
As you know, I've been involved in the legislative process for several decades now. And so it's not going to be a surprise to me to find out that state senators work 5-6 days a week, year round, all year.
Right.
So I'm prepared for that workload.
That's crazy. Okay. Before we go on, I wanted to. This is not a question I asked JP, but where do you stand on this distracted driving? Because I got a bill that I'm considering. I want, all the texting while driving. How do you stand on that?
I went to Best Buy last week because I've been driving around District 8, visiting all the towns. I've been to all of the towns so far. It's a big district, 24
Huge.
towns, 24 towns
Wow.
across 4 separate counties.
Oh, wow.
And the traveling is not easy. There's Route 9 that sort of scoots across and hits a few of the towns along the bottom, and you can access a couple along the east side of the district from Route 89.
Helps out a little bit.
A little bit from 89. You can hit, Sutton and New London, and get you into Newport pretty quickly by hopping I-89. But so I generally, personally, do not make phone calls while I'm driving. I'm just uncomfortable trying to do that. But I do accept phone calls if they come in. But I was finding that happening more and more often. So I went to get Bluetooth added to my truck so that I could do the hands-free
I thought that was
thing.
like a redneck thing where they get a Bluetooth from getting punched or. No?
No, that's they get like black teeth.
Oh, okay. So anyway.
So anyways, Bluetooth is a way that you can answer the telephone hands-free from your vehicle, and they have a little gizmo that they'll put under the dash in your truck for $200, or your car, I'm sure,
Yeah.
for $200. And so I looked at the guy and I said, "Is there a cheaper way to do this? There's got to be something." He said, "Well, yeah, for $123 we can put a new radio in." Oh. Sounds better than the factory radio, and it comes Bluetooth compatible.
Yeah.
So that's a long answer for saying I don't like distracted driving.
Right.
And I don't want to participate in distracted
But what
driving.
about laws in reference to, because that's different what you want to do and what you will pass or as a state senator.
Well, the texting is currently illegal, right? Texting
Right,
while
but
driving?
how would you have voted on the texting? Because I have an idea, because I'm starting to finally get on board with understanding this issue.
Yeah.
And it being, because it's basically comes down to, are you willing, would you pass a law that would save one life because people are distracted? So passing a law, if it saves 1 or 2 lives, is it worth it? So my idea, I don't know if you want to co-sponsor this, if you win, is to require that any women within 100 yards of a right-of-way have to wear a burqa.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to co-sponsor that with you, Gary.
Really?
Yeah, probably not.
Wow, I thought after
I have a reasonably good self-control, and so I think I.
You do?
Yeah.
Gary
okay.
really thinks outside the box, and I think that's what makes him such a
Unique.
memorable legislator.
Unique.
Yeah.
Yes, unique.
Okay, so I was surprised. I thought you'd go along with that. But anyway, so what do we do? We had a bill today, and this, get your feedback on this, but this is a tough one because we had the police officer shot.
Officer Arkell,
Yeah,
Redwood,
which
yes.
is horrendous. And so anyway, we had a bill in this that was sent over to the Senate about burglary. It was actually just kind of a we were led to believe anyway it was a housekeeping bill, which means they're fixing something in the law or something. But they amended it to repeal the death penalty. Okay? And that was what we debated on the House floor today, was the repeal of the death penalty. And it's tough. When a cop gets shot, it's like that's a tough thing to vote on.
Mm-hmm.
And I voted for the repeal. I just don't see the state has the moral right to kill anybody anymore. When I was first elected, I was actually pro-death penalty, but as time wore on, I realized that the state is not.
There's a lot of shift in that direction.
Yeah, it's just I just don't see that it has the moral authority anymore to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, what's your take on the death penalty?
I don't agree with the idea of repealing the death penalty as it stands in the state of New Hampshire. I'm going to listen to law enforcement on this one. When they say to us that the only thing standing between correctional officers and hardened criminals who are already in for life, and there's nothing else you can take away from them to control their behavior is the death penalty, I'm going to believe them. And as you said, we're not going to have a trial, an Addison-type trial for the loss of Officer Briggs, in the very unfortunate situation involving Officer Arkell this week, and prayers go out to his family. But I think New Hampshire's death penalty is well written, well drafted. It's been amended multiple times. I believe it's constitutional. It has the second trial involved to make sure that the penalty is correct. We haven't used it since, is it 1939 or 1937?
It's been a long time, yeah.
39, yeah.
39. It's been a very, very long time. I think the arguments for death penalty repeal are legitimate in some states where that penalty is used repeatedly, year after year after year after year. That I don't believe is appropriate, but I do think that there are some crimes that are heinous enough that the death penalty is appropriate.
Okay. I don't necessarily disagree too much with that. Or at least that's the way I used to vote also. What else did we do today? Do you remember? Oh, you weren't there. Okay, death penalty.
Not yet.
Repeal. No, death penalty.
I'm planning on
Not
being
yet.
there. I can help you next year with this stuff, Gary.
Oh, so there's a bill in there. This is kind of a double-edged sword. There's a bill that we spent quite a bit of time on to make it illegal to discriminate against an employee who is the victim of domestic violence. And it was just, I voted against it only by virtue of the fact that it just seems like, A, there was no testimony in the House that anybody that had happened to.
Yeah.
There was one woman that testified that she was afraid somebody was going to discriminate against her because she was a victim of domestic violence. But that's really not a case that you can wrap your head around. But my take on it was, first of all, this employees who, if they find out you're the victim of domestic violence, will look at the law and say, well, do we really want to hire somebody? We know that we saw it in the paper last week that their boyfriend beat them up and the cops had to come to their home. Maybe it's not wise that we employ them, because then we got to worry about, if they don't work out.
Sounds to me like a solution in search of a problem. I mean, I don't hear about this particular circumstance ever happening.
Without the benefit of hearing testimony and without the benefit of reading the bill, I really can't, give you an opinion on how I would feel about it. But what I can say is domestic violence is abhorrent, and it's a serious social problem. Keep in mind that the event that led to Officer Arkell's death this week was domestic violence. I mean, these are very, very serious matters.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so, I'm not going to opine on these things without having a chance to read the bill or to hear the testimony. I've read a lot of legislation. I've acted on a lot of legislation, and there are often unintended consequences to bills. You've sort of referenced a couple of them here. So we need to make sure that anything that becomes state law is done very carefully. But again, I just can't hazard a guess on that one, Gary, because I haven't had a chance to read the bill or to hear the testimony. But I do think that we have to take any issue involving domestic violence extremely, extremely seriously.
Okay. That's reasonable. Let's see. Oh, okay, yeah. What's your stance on pro-life or pro-choice or?
I'm pro-choice. You know, my position on abortion comes down to the fact that I am a strong believer in the Constitution, and I believe that the primary right are the individual rights. And to me, it's a constitutional issue that allows a woman to decide what's going to happen to her body. Now, I'm also a lifelong Episcopalian, and so my conscience comes into play on this one. And my church tells me that abortion should always be discouraged, that our goal and our role should always be to minimize the number of abortions that happen in the United States and in the state of New Hampshire. But that if and when they are needed and desired, that we ought to have a system in place that respects the rights of the woman and makes sure that we have clean, safe abortion facilities.
I agree. That's very much how I feel about it as well.
I think I'm outnumbered.
You are on this one.
I mean, really, it comes down to me to a constitutional question and then to an issue of conscience that's based in my Episcopal upbringing.
All right, well, I disagree because I think the Constitution would also protect the unborn, so, but I'm not going to belabor it. But what the thing that I will ask, though, is on specifics. What about do you believe that a 13-year-old girl should be able to get an abortion without the parents even knowing about it?
I believe that there need to be limits. I believe there should be parental notification. I think parental notification statutes should include anticipation of the reality that there are going to be some young women who can't go home to tell mom and dad, particularly if she's a victim of incest. And so we need to have a situation set up where that child can get before a judge or a magistrate of some sort who can then make the decision.
Give a waiver.
Give a waiver to get that done.
Because in the legislature, I was actually surprised my first term. We had a Republican majority, and parental notification with the caveats that you mentioned still didn't get through. It was actually quite surprising to me because I understand the argument about a woman's right to choose, but it didn't seem reasonable that you extend that to a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah. I mean, there are some other limits out there that I would certainly be open to considering. You know, there's a 20-week question that's being floated out there at this point in time, and frankly, I find partial birth abortion just horrible.
Yeah, I don't want to go.
I just have to say, as someone who's pro-choice, it's refreshing to hear someone else who's pro-choice who also is willing to accept something like parental notification, because it seems like so many of us who are pro-choice are just so, as we've talked about on the show, are just so in lockstep on no restrictions because, they think it's a slippery slope or whatever. You give a little on this or that, and then all of a sudden, they're going to figure out a way to make abortion completely illegal and whatnot. So I very much agree with everything that you just said, and it's good to hear someone else who is reasonable, who is pro-choice but is reasonable on it.
Thank you.
Because a lot of us, I think, look kind of, to those of you who are pro-life, we just look like kind of ridiculous, like we won't give on anything, and it's.
Well, on just about every issue, there needs to be compromise. There needs to be,
Yeah.
there needs to be some way to try to
Find some common ground.
Find common ground.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's bothered me in the legislature is in a lot of subjects is just no reason. You're not allowed to be reasonable on anything.
Right.
I've done this. I just want people to know before I say this. I've said this to the guy in question. I've called him up to make sure he understood. But 2 terms ago, I had a gun bill in the Fish and Game Committee. And it was democratically controlled House, democratically controlled committee, and they called me because I was the most conservative member of the committee, me and Mike McCarthy. And they called me and says, we want to change this law to allow rifles to be loaded in the car. And it was David Wheeler was one calling me, and J.R. Hole who's a representative from Dunbarton. And they're calling me, and they said, we want you to eliminate all restrictions. And I thought about it, and I understood that if you're in an RV or a boat, and you can't get to your right, if you have to go grab the rifle, then go over to the other side of wherever it is in a drawer, pull out the ammo, put it in the gun, you're already dead if you're defending yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But conversely, if you have a 30-06 in the back window, we got a caller.
Yeah, Norm is on. Do you want to grab this now, or you want to finish your?
Yeah, just finish your statement.
Okay.
Just one sec. So, anyways, I couldn't live with the 30-06 pointed out the window, and my name is on that amendment, and so I said, okay, we'll call it. We'll say you can't have a weapon with a round in the chamber in the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's still accessible for quick use if you needed it, and it's not a danger to everybody around you. That was not absolute enough. That was not what they asked for. They attacked me in the next election, because you can't use reason in any of these debates.
Call you a rhino if you step out of
Oh, it's
line or
horrible,
anything. Yeah,
ridiculous.
Norm, welcome to Rock Paper Hand Grenades. Norm, you still there?
Yeah.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, how dare you to put me on hold like that?
I know, right?
Because if
I
I don't finish,
really?
no,
Hey,
wait,
have you
Norm,
talked about the
Norm,
marijuana bill yet with this gentleman?
What?
Say that again, Norm. What's that?
Have you guys discussed the marijuana? You know what I'm going to ask, Matt. If he's running for state senate, right?
Yeah.
How was his feelings with the marijuana bills?
Which one? The medical marijuana, or the legalization, the decriminalization, or the
All of it.
we want to grow hemp?
I think he said all of it.
All of it. All right, Norm.
In other words, legalizing marijuana. I know the medical is legalized, but legalizing all of it or decriminalizing it.
You know, I would have supported the idea of legalizing medical marijuana if there are people that are suffering from, terminal diseases.
Glaucoma.
And marijuana can be. Well, you pointed to your head and said.
No, my
eye.
Oh,
okay. And their suffering can be relieved from marijuana. Then I say let them have it. And what I find very strange is that the state is telling us that we're not going to be able to figure out how to get the marijuana into the hands of people until sometime in 2016, and we can't even give you a date then. You know what? I've seen things a lot more difficult than figuring out how to get marijuana into the hands of sick and dying people that they got done in 90 days.
Right.
So I'm just not buying it that it's going to take them until 2016 to get that done.
Yeah.
That's number one. If Norm is a big supporter of marijuana, I'm going to start to veer away from him at this point in time. I understand and will remain open to the idea of decriminalization with some guidance from New Hampshire's law enforcement community.
Yeah.
Because I think that there have been too many young people who have made youthful mistakes, been caught with a bit of pot, and have had their lives ruined as a result of it. They can't join the military,
Right.
On and on and on.
Student loans and everything over
on and on the
over
things they
joint and
can't do.
ashtray.
So does that make sense that people's
No.
lives?
Hey, if
should
this
be-
guy's in my district, I'll vote for him.
Perfect. I'm stopping here.
Yeah, quit while you're ahead. Yeah, no, Norm.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks,
All
Norm.
right, thank you, Norm.
So stop right there. 'cause
There you go.
You're
Yeah,
about
you
to
got the
lose him in
vote.
the next
Yeah,
one. I can
yeah,
tell.
yeah,
where that's going.
Well played, sir.
Thank
Well
you.
played, yeah. But you don't believe
But you
it.
mentioned guns.
Yes.
We ought to talk about Second Amendment stuff.
Okay, well, that's a good idea. No, so anyway, yeah, that's my point. Is that New Hampshire Firearms Coalition (NHFC) just attacks people
Yeah,
because they don't do what they're told by the NHFC.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have Jeff Goley on. He's a state rep from.
Yeah.
He's a Democrat.
Oh wow,
We're gonna have a
you
Democrat.
snagged one.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
snagged a Democrat.
Labor
to
Committee,
come on.
right?
I don't know what committee he's on.
Labor, I think.
But he's a really nice guy, and he had a couple bills in that were gun bills, and he just got trashed by by people like that who don't just disagree with him, which is okay. Everybody has arguments, but they just attack.
Yeah.
It's insane because the guy is pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment, but he put his name on something, and they just going for the throat.
Well, and that's unfortunate.
It is.
People should be able to disagree without being disagreeable, and they should be willing to try to compromise and to find some common ground. And somebody used to say you can't make the perfect the enemy of the good. I think.
Right.
And so, another cliche, but the definition of a good compromise is nobody's completely happy.
Right.
But you're always going to have people that are going to come at an issue or a question from 12 different directions, and so somebody's going to be upset, somebody's going to be kind of happy, but nobody's going to be really thrilled, and that is the trick to legislating, in my mind, is solving a real problem facing the people of the state of New Hampshire in a fair manner to everybody.
Yeah.
Protecting
So-
minorities, too. That's really, I'm sorry. A minority point of view needs to be respected.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. But Second Amendment, not only, what's your stance on the Second Amendment and why?
I'm a strong supporter of gun rights. I own firearms. I target shoot at Sunset Mountain Rod and Gun Club over in Canterbury. I hunt. Have for a very long time. I don't support gun control in really any form. Period.
But why?
Because I believe it's clearly stated in the U.S. Constitution that we have a right to keep and bear arms, and I don't buy the argument that, well, that's only in the event that we need to call up a militia. No, the court has ruled that that's just a for instance, that the right to keep and bear arms is an individual right.
Right.
Also seems too gun control just doesn't work. I mean, in places where there's more gun control, there's more violence, not less.
Yeah. Well, the ridiculous thing is I knew prior to 1993 or 4, I think I knew one person that had an AR-15.
Mm-hmm.
In 94 or 93, it was Dick Sweat and his team of merry men. That was a sleazy thing, too. Because Dick Sweat made it, turned on the Second Amendment, because he's a New Hampshire state congressman.
Mm-hmm.
He flipped, and then coincidentally ended up being an ambassador to I don't know, probably Austria or something like that.
Something like
You got a
Yeah.
cushy job.
It's
yeah.
that was just so sleazy. I mean, if you're willing to take an ambassadorship to switch on your constituents, that puts you right up on the sleazy thing. But that's just it. It wasn't until the assault weapons ban or whatever it was called in '93 that people started buying AR-15s.
If you threaten to take them away from people, they're going to want to grab one before they're gone.
Before that, I didn't know anybody that even owned them.
I didn't either. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Same here.
now I don't.
Now
I
you
don't
see them
know.
at the range all the time, but
All the
you never
time.
did before.
You never did, and it's all because they keep trying to take them away.
Right.
It's a scam. Anyway, so Second Amendment, right to work.
I haven't made up my mind on right to work yet. I know that you oppose right to work.
Yeah.
And I know that you lost your chairmanship a couple of years ago over your position on right to work.
Correct.
I am talking with people about right to work at this point in time. I think that there is a lot about right to work that I didn't know. The more I research it, and again, it's right to work is not an issue that ever came before me, until the last month or so, until I started
Yeah,
thinking about running for Senate. So I'm still educating myself, and as I understand it, in New Hampshire, an employer can simply say in their collective bargaining with their employees, either, yeah, we're a right to work shop, or no, we're not. And that's it. I mean, they really get to come to the bargaining table at that point. And then the real question is whether or not there's a fee, an agency fee, I think they call it, and whether or
Yes.
not the agency fee will be collected from employees who choose not to join the union. But all of those things, as I understand it, are negotiable under the contract between the employer and the employee.
Right.
So I'm still trying to wrestle in my mind with exactly how this fits into my feeling that everything that happens should be constitutional. And there's a lot of moving pieces here, and so I'm still working on this one, but I've not made a decision yet.
Yeah, it's fundamentally right to work is again, I was talking to JR, and he was telling me that it wasn't an anti-union bill and I said, yeah, right. Jeez. I told him he was full of what makes the grass green, because it was just ridiculous. But fundamentally,
Nitrogen?
Yeah, nitrogen.
I was gonna say chlorophyll, but that's leaves.
Yeah, good,
That's leaves, yeah. Yeah, right to work basically says that if you're a member of in a union shop, and by the way, most union shops, there's very few union shops in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like a little over 1% of the workforce in New Hampshire's union.
Really?
Most of the union is teachers, state employees, and those are separate things that people vote on. Those contracts voters vote on.
Okay,
Or the
so
legislature.
so you're talking about
Private
private
employers is very few
Okay.
union shops, so it
Yes,
really
it's-
doesn't affect hardly anybody as far as the way it's portrayed or sold.
Yeah. It's another solution in search of a problem.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But right to work says that, like, my wife's a teacher in Manchester, and she's union. If she doesn't want to belong to the union, she doesn't have to belong to the union, but she does have to pay the what you call them fees?
Agency fee.
Agency fees, which is the fee that the union charges for negotiation. And if they have to negotiate with the town for a year to get a contract, well, that agency fee is higher. And to me, that's reasonable. If you work for a union and they give you a 5% raise, and you should pay your percentage of what that costs to get that raise. It just seems reasonable.
Again, I'm still just trying to reconcile in my mind the first base that I touch every time an issue comes up is the Constitution, and I'm still wrestling with the constitutional idea that somebody can be forced to pay a fee if they don't want to. Now, I understand that the contract says that the union is going to negotiate, and your salary in some way or another is going to be impacted by that, and if you're sued, they're going to represent you.
If you're a member of the union.
But I think even if you're not a member of the union, and that's why another reason why they charge the agency fee.
I didn't know that.
Well, and so that's why I'm still struggling with the constitutional issues in my mind. And I've been reaching out to people and talking with folks about this and several other issues,
Right.
because I'm just not personally clear on them yet, and I want to make sure that in any decision that I make that I stay consistent, that my decisions and my positions are based upon the Constitution, discussions with my constituents, and my conscience.
Oh, you have a conscience?
I do.
You sure? You sure you? Okay, whatever. I know it didn't serve me well when I started, but whatever.
At least I have one at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, give it time. Let's see. Same-sex marriage. That's another one that might come up for repeal of same-sex marriage.
I would not support repeal of same-sex marriage for the same reasons that I if I touch base with the Constitution and I look into my conscience, the Constitution says to me that most important right is the individual right in the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And I don't see anything in there that says that the government should be able to tell people, no, I'm sorry, but you can't love him or you can't love her because you happen to be the same gender. And my conscience as well tells me that we really should be allowing people to find their happiness.
I agree.
I disagree.
I know.
What about? Well, I'm not going to go into
I'm
detail.
glad you're here, Matt. Thank you.
At the first start of the show, one guy said, you sure you want to have Matt on because he's pretty far to the left of you. And I says, well, that's good, because if I just have somebody next to me that agrees with me on everything,
Yeah.
what's the point
Where's
of
the
that?
fun
Right,
there?
right.
I mean, if I can't defend my positions, if I am so insecure that I can't defend what I believe,
Yeah.
then whatever, you know.
A small, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm an independent. I'm very centrist in my views, but we always joke that next to Gary, I look like Karl Marx.
Just
He
a
one-
little,
he's
a
one of
little,
the Marx
a little
brothers, right?
anecdote.
Him and Harpo, yes.
Harpo, yeah.
A little anecdote. A young woman recently found out that I was running for state senate, and she looked at my palm card, and it says Republican for state senate. First thing she said is, "Does my dad know you're a Republican?" I said, "Yeah, he's known that I've been a Republican for 30 years." And she says, "But you two get along so well." I said, "I know." And she said, "You know he's a Democrat." And I said, "Of course I know he's a Democrat. That's why we have such great discussions. I also know that he's a Yankee fan, you know, but
And you still talk to him.
I still talk to him."
Wow!
Yeah.
You are open-minded.
Well, you also seem very moderate.
You know, I think I am probably moderate. I'm
Yeah.
certainly right of center, but I'm not far right.
Yeah, yeah.
What about
I mean-
polygamy?
You haven't asked me about taxes.
No, I'm not asking about taxes.
Well, I'm
That wasn't
telling
on the
you that
list.
taxes are on my list, and I will not. I'll take the pledge right now, right here. Nobody's really asked me officially, but I'll tell you, I'm not going to support a broad-based sales or income tax.
Good, good.
Can we talk about something more important now?
Polygamy?
Polygamy.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
Uh,
If you
you know, it's an issue I haven't thought about.
If you take your prior statement that your only foundation is the Constitution, and somebody makes somebody happy, then the state has no vested interest in
Yeah,
not.
that's an interesting point. When the bill comes up, I will make a decision on it.
Oh, this is fun. Oh, casinos. Yeah, I want to see where. I'm trying to cover some of the stuff that we actually do vote on very regularly. So these are perennial issues that come up, and
I'm
so-
not a fan of gaming.
How so?
You know, I've been to a couple of conventions that were held at Mohegan Sun or one of those places, Foxwood or something like that. I went into the casino. I didn't lose money. I made a little bit of money, and I didn't enjoy it. It was just something that didn't feel good to me. And you know, I'm running because I want to protect what's special about the state of New Hampshire, and I just feel that expanded gaming in the state of New Hampshire is going to have a negative effect on the social and the natural environment. And so at this point, no, not at this point. I don't support gambling.
Okay. Yeah,
Period.
actually, it was Representative Kirk who explained it to me when I was new, because I didn't give it much thought prior to that. And he basically, this is not the analogy he used, but basically described it as a giant vacuum cleaner that is able to suck up all the disposable income in a given area and wipe out small businesses and things like that. And all that money goes to the state and a very, very small group of people, and provides jobs for, like if you did it in Salem, all those jobs would go to people that would be willing to work for a very small amount, and a lot of them would be from Massachusetts. A lot of them would be union people from Boston. New Hampshire isn't.
Did we agree on that one, Gary?
Yeah, we agreed. That's one.
There you go.
No, it's not. No, it's not the only one. We have the Second Amendment we agree on, and casinos. Oh, and Obamacare. We had the big bill that expanded was it expanded Medicare?
Yeah,
Medicaid.
Medicaid. I get those screwed up.
Yeah, me
Anyway,
too.
go ahead. Elaborate on what your take on that is.
Were I there, I would not have voted to support Medicaid in the fashion that it came before the legislature this year. I think we have I know we have a serious healthcare problem in the country, and we need to continue to work on it. The ACA, aka Obamacare, is not the final solution to the problem that we're facing in this country, and so we need to keep working on it. But the bill that came before the legislature this year and was passed, I think, was a little backwards. I think it put the expansion cart in front of the waiver's horse. So, in other words, we should have insisted that we would expand Medicaid only once we got the waivers from the federal government that allowed us to use those funds to buy coverage on the open market for those individuals. Now we've lost the leverage that we had to try to get those waivers. We have primarily, with the exception of Senator Ayotte, we have a Democratic congressional delegation who we are now relying on to try to pull those waivers through for us. Call me a skeptic, but I'm kind of doubtful on the idea that we're going to get the waivers. That's how this thing really would have worked properly. So I think we should have gotten the waivers first and then gotten the expansion, because then those waivers would have come sooner and faster, and it would have set us up properly. The other problem I have with this is that there is no guarantee that the federal money continues to come, and we can't see into the future, and we don't know, what sort of disasters might befall the country that sucks available federal. There isn't any more available federal money, but but federal funds away from the Medicaid expansion program. And so, my big fear is that the Medicaid expansion could turn out to be the vote that we look back on in 4, 6, 8, 10 years and say, well, if we hadn't have done that, we wouldn't need to put in place this broad-based sales or income tax. But because that happened back in 2014, we don't have any choice.
Yeah, because you all of a sudden you have these, what is it, 50,000 people?
50,000, yeah.
50,000 people dependent on the system. And if you say, well, we're going to repeal this because we can't afford it,
or you can't now,
then you're gonna have hundreds and hundreds of people going up there and say, that are in dire straits.
I don't believe you could ever repeal it. I know it's in there that there's a sunset, that if the money goes away or if the waivers don't come through, that this goes away. But I just don't see how that possibly happens now that they've done it.
So it sounds like you're not necessarily opposed entirely to the Medicaid expansion, but you want it done right. Basically, or
what we need to do is we need to make sure that health care is available to low income families and individuals in the state of New Hampshire. That's what I think we need to do.
Yeah. Okay.
But people might not understand is that New Hampshire's actually been ahead of the curve on that anyway, because to the best of my understanding, the children have been covered for a long time.
Yeah. What is that? The Healthy Kids?
Healthy Kids,
program,
Healthy Kids. If you're under a certain income level, your children are already insured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
and if you ask people what's one of the best things about Obamacare, they will tell you that our children, our dependents, may now stay on their parents' health care up until the age of 26. And then you say to them, you understand that we passed that law in the state of New Hampshire, was it 4 years before Obamacare came along? It was state law. So that's not a benefit of Obamacare. That's a benefit that was provided to you by the state of New Hampshire.
Right.
Now, this gets a little bit into the weeds, but one of the things that I did when I was at the New Hampshire Bankers Association was I ran their health insurance trust for 21 years as executive director. So I was negotiating and providing health insurance benefits to over 3,000 people, the employees and their dependents that worked at community banks across the state. I was a licensed health and life insurance agent. So I know a bit about this topic. And if you want to talk about why healthcare costs are skyrocketing and why they're really getting out of control, we need to have a discussion about mandated benefits. So when we say, children up to the age of 26 can stay on their parents' coverage, the insurance companies tell us that doesn't move the needle on premiums much. It's an okay thing to do because young people don't consume a lot of health care. But year after year after year in the New Hampshire legislature, there are brought forward pieces of legislation that mandate the benefits that insurance companies must cover.
Right.
Making the policies richer and richer and richer. And then everybody scratches their head and says, but why are the premiums increasing at rates faster than inflation? Well, the answer is we're saying to the insurance companies, every policy that you're going to offer in the state of New Hampshire at a minimum is going to offer this
A, B, or C, and D,
well,
and
not,
E, and
there's no or, and that's the problem. It's A through Z. You're going to cover all of these things, period. And it was that sort of behavior that chased so many insurance companies out of the state of New Hampshire, and why we're left with only a few to choose from, and only one that participates in the ACA.
Anthem, yeah.
That's why, because I was told that Shaheen.
How did you vote on those things?
Oh, I voted against it. No, I look at this completely different.
Yeah.
To me, the perfect government, to me, the perfect government is to have people with democratic leanings run your local government. People with strong Republican leanings run your state government. And people who are libertarian run your federal government. The reason is because if you look at Obamacare, and the reason we're in such dire straits nationally is because, just like you said, the government just keeps covering more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
Okay? I was talking to, we had Hot Dog Day,
John Burt's, yeah.
Hot Dog Day, and I was talking to a couple of friends of mine who work at do volunteer at the soup kitchen. And they're working at the soup kitchen for the homeless, and these homeless people have $1,500 laptops. Okay, so they are getting money, but they're spending it on insane things because they don't really have to work for it. So the federal government has just gone way over its bounds as to what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely. Total agreement.
And Obamacare is a massive overreach of federal authority, and it's not in the Constitution. The federal government is ill-equipped to actually implement anything like that, much less run anything like that.
I'm still amazed that the Supreme Court found that the individual mandate was constitutional. That
Well, if
doesn't
you've got
make
enough
sense to me.
NSA records on all the Supreme Court justices, you can get all kinds of decisions bent your way.
Look, I agree entirely. I mean, as far
Well,
as the
probably the
political
last
parties,
one,
no,
yeah.
the political parties thing, because the forefathers weren't big fans of political parties.
No,
What
they
the
weren't.
forefathers were big fans of was local government and
Yes.
keeping government small, and they wanted decisions made in the town halls and in the state houses because government and public policy that is made close to the people has to report to the people and best reflects their needs and their desires.
I agree.
And so this idea that everything needs to now be kicked up to the federal government where we have a blanket policy, Common Core, Obamacare, whatever you want, that then comes sheltering down on top of us by the federal government, I believe is very contrary to the way that the forefathers wanted our nation to run.
Right, and that's my point. The reason I voted against the expansion of Medicaid was just for that point. The federal government has no right telling us what we, going to bed with the federal government on any program is a bad idea.
So, madam, I still moderate
Yeah.
after all that?
Yeah,
You
I would
think?
say so. Yeah,
You would, yeah.
I would say so.
So,
Yeah.
You're the
So-
kind of Republican I would vote for.
So, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll take that as an endorsement. I have to leave you with my tagline.
wait, you
Just
got,
came up with this.
well, I know, we'll do the tagline after, but I want you to make sure people know how to get in touch with you again.
Yeah.
Did you forget his name again?
Yes.
Jerry Little, Republican for State Senate, and www.jerrylittlενhsenate.com.
Jerry Little, NH Senate. Okay, what's your tagline?
My tagline,
Yes.
Little, the way government should be.
That is
Ooh,
cute.
That is
cute.
good.
I bet
That
your
is
wife
good.
came up with that, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Hey,
Jerry,
behind
thank-
every great man.
Hey, Jerry, thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you,
Uh,
Matt.
This has been great.
Thank you. It's been
I
fun.
have no
Thank you.
clue. I don't remember who I get next week. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
You don't like the
No, I don't